right, so that's my prayer this morning. But I want to tell a quick story about a guy named Matt Emmons. Anybody ever heard of Matt Emmons? Anybody? If you're an Olympics nerd, you may have heard of him. He is an Olympic gold medalist sharpshooter. So he sets up. He has a special gun that he's kind of dialed in perfectly, and his event is to shoot targets at the Olympics. And in 2004, everybody expected Matt Emmons to win easily because he was just the guy at the time, even though we've never heard of him. But Matt Emmons, he had made it to the final event, and they told him, hey, all you have to do is literally just get on the target, and you have gold. He was so far in front of everyone else that all he had to do was get on the target, and he would have got gold. And so he lines up, and it's all like intense. You can hear like a needle drop. He lines up and he shoots, and he's like, man, that was perfect. That was a bullseye. It was like probably my best shot of this tournament. And he looks up the scoreboard, and he sees a 0. And he's like, what in the, like, obviously there's something wrong with the system. Come to find out, he looks down range, and the target that he hit had 2 holes in it because he had shot his opponent's target. And so not only did he not get gold at this Olympics, he actually didn't even medal at all. Even though he had a perfect shot, he was aimed at the wrong target. And I fear that's like so many of us in the world today is that man, we could maybe do all the things that we think is right. We can have so much focus and determination, and we can like really work hard. But if we're aimed at the wrong target, it's for nothing. And so as Christians or as people that are just exploring the Bible, I just want to give us a good target, to make sure we're aiming at the right thing. And I just think foundation, like even through the Sermon on the Mount, because it's going to be easy to say, man, Jesus is just saying, hey, here's a bunch of things to start doing or to stop doing. And it feel like school again, with a teacher just saying, hey, stop doing that, stop doing that, stop doing that, start doing this, start doing this. But that's not the intention at all. That's not the target, is to stop doing a bunch of things and to start doing a bunch of things. The target is to grow in your relationship with Jesus and to love other people well. That's our target. Right? That Jesus says, hey, I want you to grow in a relationship with me. And all these things that I'm saying, hey, stop doing or start doing, those are the things that are getting in the way of your relationship with me. So I want you to be focused on the right thing. And so that's our goal this morning. We're going to be covering a lot of ground. We're going to be talking about even some difficult things. We're talking about marriage and lust and lying and some difficult subjects. But I don't want you to, in this, feel shame or guilt. I want you to hear, hey, Jesus wants a relationship with me. And I can have a right relationship with him. And here's the things that I can do to grow that relationship. So that's kind of our goal and our intentions this morning. I'm also going to do a little bit different. We have 3 sections of text that we're going to read, and we have 3 points kind of with each section. And so I'm going to share my point first, and then we're going to look at the text. And so we're going to dig into this this morning. But our first point that we see in the passage is that Jesus is faithful with his thoughts. Jesus is faithful with his thoughts. And it's very easy, like in a world today, a social media world, to give the appearance of like you got it all together, right? Or give the appearance of, man, my life is better than your life. My life is awesome. It's easy to give that appearance, but Jesus says, hey, I want to take that even a step further. Like more than I just care about this outward appearance or what other people think about you, I care about your actual soul, like even your thoughts. Because I imagine nobody would be embarrassed if we put up your last 3 Instagram pictures up here, right? You'd be like, yeah, look at me. I was looking good in that photo, right? Or, that's where we put our highlight reel. But what if we just put, like, all your thoughts from the last week up here? Anybody volunteering? I know I'm not. Right? That's like a whole nother level that Jesus says, hey, I care about those even. Because those just allow me to peer even into your soul, who you really are, what you really think and care about. And we're going to see that in this text. So Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 27. It says, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body go into hell." And this is like extreme stuff going on in this passage. But here's the foundation, is that Jesus cares even about your thoughts. And he wants you to care about them so much that you would go to any length that you possibly could go to protect your thoughts, to protect your mind. Because the reality is that, like any sin you're going to commit, right? It starts with the sin of adultery in this passage. The sin of adultery doesn't start with fornication. It starts with a thought. It starts with a thought that leads to a dream, that leads to an action, that leads to a further action. And Jesus said, hey, to have a right relationship with me, I want you to take your thoughts captive. One of the verses that has stuck with me since high school that I just sometimes just really struggle with this verse. In 1 Thessalonians 4:3, it says, "For this is the will of God." Right, that's a verse that I want to hear, where it says, hey, this is the will of God. Because I've asked that a lot of times in my life. Hey, God, what is your will for my life? What do you want from me? What do you want me to do in this situation? What school do you want me to go to? And it's like, man, it was written down, for this is the will of God. And it says, your sanctification. That means that, hey, the will for God's will for your life is a growing relationship with him. The next part says that you abstain from sexual immorality. And that's like, it's very difficult. It says like God's will, even for our life, is that we abstain from sexual immorality, that we abstain from lust. This word lust just means strong sexual desire. Strong, even misplaced sexual desire. And it's like, God, and look, this is a difficult subject like I started out with. I don't want you to feel shame here. I don't want you to feel guilt. I want you to feel the freedom that's in Jesus. Because he says, hey, I know your thoughts. I know you don't want anyone else in the world to know your thoughts, but I do know your thoughts, and I love you the same. That's what Jesus says. But even though I love you the same and I'm forgiving you for your thoughts, past, present, and future, because you're going to screw up again tomorrow, so even though I've forgiven you for all that, let's work towards protecting your thoughts. Let's begin to do some maybe even some radical steps. I don't think Jesus really practiced self-mutilation. You never really see that. But he says, hey, I want you to do whatever it takes to protect your thoughts. So I have just some practical things for us. I just think it's foundational that we set some boundaries. If we're going to be serious about this, if we're going to be serious about taking our thoughts captive, I think it's important that we set some boundaries. I'm going to talk through these for just a minute. Is that maybe a boundary for you? This would sound crazy. You might would rather chop off your hand than this, but maybe you need to get rid of your smartphone. Maybe if you're like, man, every time I go to my smartphone, I end up lusting after some pictures I see. Maybe it's every time I go to my smartphone or I go to social media, I begin to dream about the life I don't have and long for things that God hasn't given me and begin to get envious of others. And maybe that even stores up some anger in your heart like we talked about last week. Maybe it's like, man, my phone actually does more harm for me than good. I'm not telling you this is what you need to do, but maybe Jesus was here today, instead of saying gouge out your eyes and cut off your hand, he might say, hey, get rid of your smartphone and get a flip phone. Again, that's not for everybody, but maybe that's for you. Maybe that's a boundary that you say, I just need to set that boundary because I need to protect my thoughts. I need to be diligent about that. Maybe you need to stop going to certain places. Maybe you're like, man, I always fall into sin at the beach, or at the pool, at the gym. Maybe I always fall into sin at Albertsons because they don't stock the shelves right, and I always get mad. No, whatever it is for you. Yeah. But maybe there's some certain places in your life where you cannot protect your thoughts, or where you always, when you go in those settings, when you see people there, your mind always wanders. It always ventures to lust or envy or strife or whatever it may be. And you just said, you know what? I care more about my soul. I care more about my relationship with Jesus. I'm just even going to stop going to some of those places. I'm going to get some weights, and I'm going to have the gym at home. I'm going to give up the beach, whatever it may be. Maybe that's a step that might need to be taken. We talked about this earlier, but just getting rid of social. Maybe you're like, I can have a smartphone. I don't need Instagram. I don't need Facebook. Maybe for you, you always venture into sinful thoughts at 11:30 p.m. Some of you are like, that's really late. Some of you are like, that's so early. What are you talking about? We got a diverse crowd. But maybe it's, late at night. There's often not good things that happen late at night, especially with your thoughts. I don't know about for you, when I'm tired, I don't have my guard up, it's so much easier for my mind to drift towards sin. And so maybe in your life you're saying, hey, I want to take my thoughts captive. I don't want to allow that to happen. And so instead of trying to be just stronger in the moment, I'm going to allow the moment to not even happen. I'm going to start going to bed at 10. I'm going to start going to bed at 9. I'm just going to not even allow myself, even though I always drifted that time of night. I'm going to get rid of that time of night for me. I'm going to be snoozing. And there's probably 100 other things that we could put on this list. Here's just a few things that I wanted us to just think about. What could we practically do to get serious about taking our own thoughts captive? And saying, hey, I'm through with lust in my life. I'm probably going to slip up again, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it out of my life. And so I just really want us to even invite you to think practically this week. What thing from this list, or maybe that you need to add, to saying, hey, I'm going to be serious about this. I'm going to take my thoughts captive, and I'm going to set some boundaries in my life. And then let's do them. Again, not to be restrictive, not to get rid of things in your life, but to grow in your relationship with Jesus and to better love those around you. Better love those around you. C.S. Lewis, I'm just going to end with this quote. He just says, love is the great conqueror of lust. Love is a great conqueror of lust. And the reality of this is it's the right placement of the love. Right, when we grow our love and affection for the Father or even for your spouse, that will often simultaneously diminish lust in our hearts for other things. Right, Jesus says all the time, you can't serve two masters. Right, we have to be focused on Him and in pursuit of Him. We're going to mess up. I do all the time. We have the right goal that we're striving for. Just in closing, just on the subject, one of the things that's always interesting to me is when culture catches up to the Bible. And one of the ways that I've seen this just over the years is just on the subject of lust. There's this organization called Fight the New Drug that has declared, it's a secular organization, so it's not faith-based at all, but they have declared and done research and a lot of studies that an addiction to pornography is just as harmful as an addiction to cigarettes, to your mind and even to your body. And it's crazy to me that it's like, okay, now 2,000 years later, since it was written in 1 Thessalonians 4, they're saying, hey, we've been talking about this for a long time, but now culture says, hey, there's actually a problem here. We weren't designed to lust after everything else in the world. We were designed for right relationship with God and union with one spouse. We weren't designed for all this other things. And so I just want just, again, have a foundation. We could spend the rest of the sermon here, and even this next subject we're going into, I even want to do a series on in the future, but we're just going to have just kind of a glimpse into some of these things. So our second point this morning, just continuing the Sermon on the Mount, we had Jesus is faithful with his thoughts, and then now Jesus is faithful with his actions. Jesus is faithful with his actions, and we want to emulate Jesus. If you want to learn how to better love and serve people, look at the life of Jesus and do what he did. In verse 31, it says, "It was also said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of sexual morality, makes her commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery." Now, there's a lot going on in this passage, and we're going to get deeper in this, like I said, in a series that we have planned in the coming months. But just foundationally, where I want to start is that God designed you ultimately for him. God designed you for him. Because there's a lot of nuance and passages on marriage, and it's like, man, when is it right to get divorced, or all these different things, and then say, hey, ultimately, God's ultimate goal for your life is a relationship with him, not a spouse. Let me just say that one more time. God's ultimate goal for you and your life, more than anything else, is a relationship with him, not a spouse. And here's what that means. If we wrongly place marriage, we often say elevated as the ultimate goal, right? That's something that we long for more than anything else, something that controls us more than anything else. It controls our thoughts, our emotions, our everything else. He's saying, hey, you've made marriage a god, and marriage makes a terrible god. The reason marriage makes a terrible god is because marriage is you get two sinful people together in close proximity. The only thing that can happen without the grace of God is friction. There's going to be problems. There's going to be issues and concerns. And it's like, hey, when you've made that the focus, and God isn't the focus, the relationship with him isn't the focus, turmoil will ensue. So that's why I wanted us just foundationally. Here, Jesus is really addressing with the crowd. He's saying, hey, y'all have gotten so mixed on, hey, I just want a wife, I just want a woman, and then if she doesn't meet all my needs because it's all about me, I can move on to the next one. Marriage, even in itself, isn't about you. Because so much of the Christian life is saying, hey, I'm going to die to myself and what I want and pursue Christ and what he wants. Because the way marriage was designed was as a covenant and not a contract. We are in a contract culture where it's like, hey, as soon as you stop doing your end of the deal, I'm not responsible anymore. Right? We break contracts like they're nothing. I think about this like with phone contracts. Like every single phone company was like, hey, break your contract, we'll pay for it, like it's cool, come to us, and we'll sign a new contract. It's like, why would I be faithful to your contract, you know? Like we got all these different contracts with so many things, and we never read them, right? I agree, we lie every time. I read everything. Because we live in this contract culture that it's like, man, I'm just going to protect myself and my interests in this contract. I'm going to make it good for me, and then as soon as you break it, I'm not responsible anymore. A covenant is so much deeper than that. What a covenant says, hey, no matter what you do, no matter if you hold up your end of the deal, here's what I'm going to do. You see that with God. God said, hey, I know you're going to mess up. Like before we even make this covenant, I know you're going to screw it up. But yet I'm still going to hold up my end of the deal. God said, despite you messing it up and continuing to mess it up, I'm going to hold up my end of the deal, but God does it even one better. He holds up our end of the deal as well. We can go deeper in that later, but it's just the beautiful picture of the gospel that God loved us so much that even when we were sinners, even when we were dead in our sin, God sent his only son, Jesus, to come to this earth, to die for our sins, to take on the penalty for our sins, and was rose on the third day to show his power over sin and death in the grave, just so that we could have a right relationship with him. And that's the covenant love that was designed for marriage. So wherever you're at, we could talk practically about relationships, but I just think foundationally we need to think covenant, not contract. So if you're in pursuit of marriage, if you're in marriage, if it's just messy and you don't even know what all is going on, we can look to Jesus and think covenant, saying, hey, no matter what this person does, no matter how they wrong me, no matter what they say, I'm going to love them like Jesus. I'm going to hold up my end of the deal with everything that I can, with everything that I am. I'm going to try my hardest. Again, we're going to get it wrong. I know I am. I think that's what foundationally Jesus is really discussing here. That, hey, you made marriage an idol, and you're not treating it the way that I would. Because Jesus is faithful with his actions. So honor covenant, not contract. Another just practical thing that's just helpful. This is almost even a drive-by. If you're married now, I just think it's just helpful to have the D word not even on the table. Like divorce, let's just not even have it on the table. If it's an option, it can always be considered. If it's not an option, then you can't even consider it. That's just a tidbit. And the last thing, that's just been helpful for me in my marriage because I'm a yes person. I like to say yes to everything, but every yes is a no to something else. Every yes is a no to something else. Yes to get dinner with a friend that's hurting is a no to time with family. Every yes to not listen to your spouse or no to hearing how they're feeling and where they are and what's going on, what concern they have. So those are just two last little things that I just like drive by, wrote in my notes. Those are free to have those. But just lastly, our final point is that Jesus is faithful with his word. Right? He's faithful with his thoughts. He's faithful with his actions. And lastly, he's faithful with his word. In verse 33, it says, again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. Now I just thought this was interesting, like why Jesus gives all these specifics in this one. Why he's saying, hey, don't swear by Jerusalem or all these things. So I did some research in 1 Samuel 17:55. You see this passage where the king, he swore by Jerusalem. Because what's important there is they have so figured out the system. That's, because we have the Ten Commandments that you can't swear by God, right? If you're bound at that point. So in Jewish law, this literally went into law, they had all these nuances where you could figure out loopholes to the law on whether or not you would be bound or not by what you said. And one of those, if you swore to God, like I swear to God I'm going to do this, you were bound. 100%, like you could die for that. That's a very binding statement. So what they would do is they would nuance it. One of the things that would also bind you is say, I swear towards Jerusalem. Because they would interpret that as you're swearing like towards where God is. So to nuance that, they just say, I swear by Jerusalem, not bound. Right? Like by changing one little word, they're like, man, I'm going to make you think that I'm really serious, but I'm not. I know I'm going to mess this up. I know I'm not going to keep my word. Right? I swear by Jerusalem, I'm going to be there at 10. Knowing I'm going to get there at 10:15. Right? But I'm not bound because I didn't swear to it. I swore by it. And Jesus said, hey, that's ridiculous. And I think like even more so today in a world that is entirely fake, one of the ways that you can represent Jesus well is by being real. being trusted, being a man or woman of your word. Like, this is a very difficult one for me. Because I even see some of like those statements on how I say, I'm not lying, I'm joking. Right? I'm playing a joke. I didn't mean it. I have all these nuances to get away with the reality of I'm not really being a man of my word. And just even I was just thinking through, like, what are some things that might represent this? Is like, maybe you spend a lot of time making yourself appear better than you actually are. Just saying, hey, this isn't who I really am, but I'm going to make you think it is. Like the example I shared earlier, a simple one is just saying, man, not getting to places that you said that you would. Man, I told you I would be here to meet you at 1. It's not okay to get there at 1:20. That's actually just a pet peeve of mine. Maybe that's not scripture. Right? Maybe that's more me. I'm just being honest with you. Well, let's be on time. Anyway, no, I'm kidding. Maybe it's cheating on your taxes. Maybe it's a plethora of things of just saying, man, here's what I've committed to do. As a citizen of the United States, I've committed to abiding by the taxes, but I'm going to actually lie to all of it. I'm going to check all the boxes I know I shouldn't be checking. I'm going to say I've already left the house and I'm still getting ready. Whatever it is for you, I just think it's foundational. If you want to represent Jesus well, be a man or woman of your word. In a world where everything else is fake, be a man or woman of your word. Christians should be a people that can always be trusted. That may be one of the biggest insults is like, man, they go to church a lot. I know they even give, but I couldn't trust them with anything. They never do what they say. The way that we represent Jesus well is by making sure we always keep our word, because that's exactly what Jesus did. Over and over again, he always kept his word. He's like, man, I'm tired of this business of you swear by this or that. He said, hey, just say yes or no, and we'll just leave it there. And just make sure if you're saying yes, you're actually going to do it. Make sure if you're saying no, you actually believe it. And where this is difficult is in a people-pleasing culture. I don't know if anyone here, don't raise your hand, but if you struggle with like pleasing people, or maybe you just overextend yourself, or you try to do things like, man, I know this is what you would want, so I'm going to tell you yes anyways. And here's something that as I was studying, I just think could be helpful for somebody in the room. Maybe it's not everybody, but maybe some of you in the room need to preemptively let some people down. Right, we're trying so hard not to let people down by doing all these things, saying all these things, going all of these things. Maybe beforehand, somebody asks you if something, it's like, you know what, I would love to do that, but I honestly can't. Because I know I can't wake up by 7 a.m. I know I can't meet you for a 7 a.m. coffee. Even though I would try to do it, I'd try my best, but I'm going to let you down now instead of letting you down later. I'm gonna try my best to be a man or woman of my word. That's a silly example, but maybe it's just foundationally, we're always trying not to let somebody else's down. Maybe we do that, but we don't even give the opportunity to not be a man or woman of our word. Saying, hey, here's who I am. I'm working on this. I'm trying, but I'm not gonna be able to do that. I'm not even gonna try, to be honest with you. No, whatever it may be. But again, all these things, we kind of went through a lot of these things quickly, but all these things are foundationally pointing to this, people. We are on this earth to grow in our relationship with Jesus and to love people well. Right? Because the reality is, if you stop like making little lies, if you stop lusting, if you stop even considering divorce, if you stop if you stop all these things, and yet you're not loving people and growing your relationship with Jesus, it's for nothing. We've missed the target. We've shot the wrong target. The target is all about Jesus and growing in our relationship with him and and loving people the way that he loved people. That's foundational. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pray here in just a second, and we're going to invite you to respond. And what that means is we say, like, everyone's going to respond this morning. If you sit there and think nothing, do nothing, that's a response. You're just saying, man, I don't care about any of that. But maybe another response that you might have this morning saying, Lord, I've struggled for a long time with making myself appear differently than I am by lying, not saying true to my word. And Lord, I need you to get that right in me. But help me to take some right steps in that this week. Maybe a response saying, Lord, I've been treating my marriage like a contract. Lord, I need to treat it like a covenant. Instead of listing out all the things my partner's not doing, I need to list out all the things that I could grow in. But would you help me do that this week? And maybe a next step for you is to say, Lord, I'm getting rid of my smartphone. Like right now, maybe you take the SIM card out in server. That would be cool. You know, whatever maybe is like whatever boundary that you might need to put in place. Maybe saying, Lord, maybe even help me to figure out the boundary. Then help me to pursue that. Maybe it's the baby steps towards it, but maybe like with the example of Jesus, we get radical about protecting our thoughts. Maybe you're in this room and saying, hey, I don't even know Jesus. I need a relationship with him. And this morning, you could say, Jesus, I need you. More than I need to figure out all these other things. Jesus, I need you. You can just believe that Jesus did die on the cross for your sins, all your mistakes, all your failures. He rose from the grave 3 days later just so that you could believe in him, turn from your sins, and have a right relationship with God. You could begin that relationship today, and I'd love to even talk to you more about that. I'm going to be in the back, and in this time, another response is maybe you just want to sing the songs that we're going to have. Maybe you want to come and pray with me, or you just have something you want me to pray for. I would love to pray for it.